We have with us Glenn Stevens, the executive director of MICHAuto. I've known Glenn for a long time and recently was on Michigan Matters with him. And I thought, gosh, we should really have you on the show with Matt and I because a lot of people probably don't know what MICHAuto is or does. So why don't you take it from there?
Sure, Matt and Mike, thanks for having me on. So, MICHauto is Michigan's voice for the auto industry. We are a statewide auto industry association. We are singularly focused on the mission of promoting, retaining, and growing our signature industry. And we do that in a variety of different ways. But one of the things that's unique about us is that we have a lot of different member investors. We have the big companies, Ford, GM, Stellantis, Toyota, lots of big suppliers, but we also have universities, economic development, startup, smaller suppliers across the state. And that's what we do. Our home is at the Detroit Regional Chamber. So we're part of the foundation work here. We're part of the regional work that the chamber does. But again, MICHauto is a statewide industry association working across the state on behalf of our industry.
Let me follow up real quick with that. Now, we were just chatting about the auto show, and it used to be called the North American International Auto Show. Now we're back to Detroit Auto Show. And just before COVID, probably luckily, it went from January to being a summer event. Now it's back in January. So, kind of, if you would explain what's going on with all that.
Sure. Yeah, so the intent in 2020 was to go to June. We know what happened that year.
Yeah.
And then after that, they decided, well, we'll make a move to September, which they did do. It was successful, but what they decided to strategically do was bring it back to January, kick off the year with it, make it even more of a consumer focused show, which it has always been because the public days are so important to it, and really rebrand and reimagine it as the Detroit Auto Show, and which is what it was originally, and come back to that. And so that's what it's at, and that's what it's going to be called. And here we are. It's upon us right now.
So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the consumer-driven nature of this show. There's a lot of opportunities for this year's show for people to actually get in cars and drive them, right? That's something new. So talk about that a little bit.
Right. So, as you know, the way that these shows have evolved has been quite dramatic. The largest show that was in existence, the Frankfurt show in Germany, doesn't even exist anymore. Some of the shows have grown, particularly in Asia. Some of them evolved and changed. Product launches are very different now. But at the end of the day, the consumer drives everything. So this focus on the consumer is important. And the experience is something that I think that they're doing a great job with here. They've done this in the past. They're going to do it again. There's going to be 40 different vehicles on 4 different types of tracks, including EVs, that the consumer will be able to get in and or drive and experience.
That will be interesting.
Okay, and what's the thinking behind that? Why are you moving to that more than just pretty static displays?
Well, first of all, you have to look at how the vehicle's changed. The interaction that the vehicle has from a tech standpoint, and now electric vehicles, it's really important for the consumer to see how these vehicles work, the features that they have, safety features being predominant, but also EVs. So, and when you have a place like Huntington Center and you have that physical real estate, and you're able to put it to work, while at the same time having vehicles on the floor in a different way, because the days of building these massive booths are really over. And we've gone to much more of the vehicles on display, but it's also being able to be experienced too. And so that's really the focus here.
That's the big difference I noticed because I used to go to the Consumer Electronics Show every year,
Right.
and they would put together the displays of the Consumer Electronics Show in 1, 2, or 3 days to show off all this high tech gear. The displays at the Detroit Auto Show took weeks to build. So I mean, it was really more about the display than the product, I thought. And now it sounds like you're getting more about the product than the display.
I think so. And remember, the B2B function is not as big as it used to be with regards to these booths and the entertainment and the product launches. It's just not done that way anymore. So putting the emphasis on the consumer, still allowing engineers and purchasing folks and people from the industry to be able to come down to the show and see the vehicles. But really importantly, to get on a Jeep on Jeep Mountain or to
Yeah.
get into an EV and punch it on the test track and see that acceleration. I mean, that's something that's you really couldn't do before. And I think that they've done, again, a great job with being able to provide that experience.
Well, it's really gone back to its roots. The Detroit Area Auto Dealers Association started it, well, what, in the 80s or something. And it was meant just, hey, get people in there and show them cars, and in the spring they'll start buying cars. So it's really kind of gone back to its roots, hasn't it?
There's some truth to that for sure. And again, that's by necessity because of things how they've evolved with product launches and global shows. But I also think this is an opportunity again to get back to that core of what's Detroit, what makes Detroit special, leverage a lot of the international, national attention that's going on to Detroit right now, which is very positive, and build on it. Look, it's not going to come out of the gate with the equivalent of some of the things it's had in the past from a number standpoint. But I think they have huge opportunity to build for the future.
Well,
So what kind,
I remember,
wait,
not to
I was
interrupt,
going to
Matt,
say,
but I remember
go
the,
ahead, Mike. I'm
I
sorry.
remember the show in the first decade of this century before the GM and Chrysler bankruptcy. It was like Hollywood debuts. It would go on for 4 or 5 days. They'd bring in big name acts. They would just, it was just amazing. It was like you say, like a Hollywood premiere. And now it's been kind of scaled back to reality. I mean, well, that was what it was. We could do a book about that, what it was and what it is. But I mean, the point is to get people in the vehicles to find out what the vehicles are like to drive, because a lot of people are still hesitant on some of these vehicles, like the electric vehicles. And they may, I have a lot of friends who are very conservative and they don't want electric vehicles, they want ICE vehicles. And I go, well, check them out. They're actually better. So, I mean, like you say, it's a chance for the public to touch them, feel them, drive them, right?
That's exactly right. And back in those days, social media wasn't a thing. Now we can reach people very quickly, like say with a vehicle launch or new information on a vehicle, stream it globally. You can do a lot of things with technology today. So you got to leverage. If you're a global OEM, you're looking at your marketing mix and you're saying, okay, how do I deploy it most efficiently to win market share? And that's what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So what kind of media presence are you expecting at this show this time?
I think that they're guesstimating probably about 1,000.
Okay, that's
Now,
still pretty
and
good.
media is different now too, right? You didn't have bloggers back in the day, or vloggers, and they are just as instrumental and just as efficient in getting the message out. So you have a lot of different people. That's kind of cool when you walk around the show where you see somebody with their iPhone tripod set up, and they're doing their blog. They might be in from California to do that. So I think that's what you'll see. But again, I think that establishing this base, getting it right, is something you have to do to be able to go for the future. Now, that's a thing, as you gentlemen know, that's really cultural here in Detroit. And it was January. January, where a father, a mother, a grandfather, a grandmother brought their child or their grandson down to see the show. And that's something that people did. Families go, fathers and sons, mothers and daughters go. And that's important to show the vehicles to the potential consumers. But for us, it's really important to show that tech and those EVs in that future because we need a future talent pipeline too. So that'll be a big part of it too.
All
Uh,
right. So how many marks do you have represented this year? I heard roughly 30.
Yeah, 30 brands is what the
Okay.
show will have. And I think they'll have 40 different vehicles on those 4 test tracks in experiential rides. But there's also going to be some other unique things. There's a gallery of high-end vehicles, the luxury vehicles.
Oh,
And
nice.
then there's also Detroit Modded, which is kind of a pop-up of high-end and different classic cars. It's kind of like a condensed Woodward Dream Cruise that's more static. And that's a pretty cool outfit. A couple of young guys run in Detroit, which I've seen them do their pop-ups. They'll do that too. So there's really going to be something for everybody.
Interesting.
Interesting.
So there's a bit of a hot rod show there too, huh?
It's
That's always
there
fun.
too. I mean, I
Yeah.
think you'll be able to see just about every type of vehicle, and I think you'll also see a big influence of outdoor technology, outdoor mobility, because the off road, the van life, all that type of stuff is really important too, and particularly in Michigan. So I think you'll see a lot of that too. So we're pretty excited about the show and how important it is to our economy and our ecosystem here as an industry.
Yeah, because for the public, it goes on for what, 10 days, 2 weeks, something like
Yes.
that?
Yep. About that. Right.
And I imagine that generates a lot of cash for downtown restaurants, parking, and all the rest, right?
Sure, it does. I mean, back in the day, I've said that a few times. We know that the economic equivalent of the auto show is probably about what a Super Bowl amounted to. They did a lot of market research on that. So we're really not sure. It's obviously not that, but it could build to that. And I think, again, putting this strong foundation back in January, branding at the Detroit Auto Show, focusing on the consumer while still allowing the industry to be part of it, I think it bodes well for us.